Welcome to Lying and Cheating. Please like this video and subscribe. Lying and Cheating, the beginning of us. It's strange to think how everything can change in a year. This whole mess, the whirlwind of emotions I find myself trapped in, started about a year ago. I was still licking my wounds from a long-term relationship that had left me raw, like an open wound that hadn't quite healed. You know the kind of breakup I'm talking about, the one that takes more than just time to get over. I wasn't looking for anything serious after that. In fact, I was determined to avoid anything that even remotely resembled a relationship. All I wanted was someone to chill with, maybe smoke a little, and if things led to more, so be it. Nothing emotional, no complications. Simple. Or so I thought. That's when Sarah came into the picture. Let's call her Sarah, although sometimes I wonder if calling her that simplifies things too much, as if reducing her to a name makes it easier to understand what happened between us. I had no idea what was coming when I met her. She seemed perfect for what I needed at the time. Someone who wasn't looking for anything too deep, just like me. We could hang out, laugh, smoke, maybe hook up, and that would be it. No strings, no expectations. That was the plan, at least in my mind. The first night I had Sarah over, it felt like everything was falling into place. We smoked in my room, just letting the evening flow naturally. We were relaxed, the conversation was easy, and it felt like we were on the same wavelength. One thing led to another, and before I knew it, we were lying on my bed, inches away from something physical happening. But then, right before anything happened, she looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "Wait, I want more with you." I remember the moment so clearly, as if time slowed down. Her words hit me like a brick to the chest. They were unexpected, completely off script from what I had in mind. In that moment, I had a choice. Either back away and keep things simple, or dive into something I wasn't sure I was ready for. It's funny how quickly things can change in your head when you're caught off guard. Against my better judgment, I found myself wanting more with her too. I guess it was the way she looked at me, with this mix of vulnerability and sincerity that I hadn't seen in a long time. I thought maybe, just maybe, this could be something different. So, from that moment on, things shifted. It wasn't just about hooking up anymore. We started talking every day, hanging out constantly. I got used to her presence in my life, even though a part of me was still telling myself I wasn't ready for another relationship. It was complicated. How I could feel so drawn to her, yet still be wary of getting too deep. But Sarah seemed to understand that without me having to say it. She didn't push me, but she stayed close. Every week we'd spend time together, getting to know each other more. And every weekend, she'd head home from school, leaving me with this strange mix of wanting to see her again but being unsure of what exactly we were building. For 3 months, we were like that, exclusively talking, hanging out, but never putting a label on anything. It was all on her terms, really. Sarah made it clear she wasn't seeing anyone else, and in return, I found myself doing the same, even though we hadn't officially said we were together. In a way, it felt comfortable, but in the back of my mind, there was always this nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right. Then winter break rolled around, and everything changed. We just started officially dating, barely a week or two in, when we had to part ways. I stayed home, and she went back to her hometown. I figured it'd be a short break from each other, nothing too serious. We'd both go out with friends, spend time with family, and then things would get back to normal. But from the moment she left, something was off. She became distant, like she was an entirely different person. At first, I chalked it up to the usual distractions of being home. You know, friends, family, the holiday chaos. It made sense that she wouldn't be glued to her phone. But then, her responses got shorter, more detached. She didn't seem interested in what I was doing or where I was going. What really threw me off was when she started accusing me of cheating. It felt so out of the blue. She'd blow up my phone if I didn't answer her texts quickly enough, or if I went out with friends, asking who I was with and if there were any girls around. It was like a switch had flipped. She was suddenly suspicious of everything I did, even though I wasn't doing anything wrong. I tried to reason with her, but nothing I said seemed to calm her suspicions. I kept thinking, why is she acting like this? It didn't make sense. She'd go out with her friends back home, and I didn't give her a hard time about it. So why was she giving me one? Then there was Mike. Sarah had told me about Mike early on, mentioned him casually in passing. He was her best friend from back home. I hadn't given it much thought at first. Everyone has friends of the opposite sex, and I didn't want to be the insecure guy who couldn't handle that. But the more I heard about him, the more it started to nag at me. Every time she went home, she was hanging out with Mike. She sent me snaps of them drinking together, taking shots with her family, laughing, and having a good time. There was nothing obviously inappropriate in the snaps. No red flags, at least not on the surface. But still, something about the way she talked about him didn't sit right with me. They had history, that much was clear. And while she swore up and down that they were just friends, there was this small voice in the back of my head whispering that maybe, just maybe, there was more to the story. She told me they'd known each other for years, that he was like a brother to her, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Over winter break, they hung out more than once. Sarah always made sure to mention that her family was around when they were together, like it was her way of reassuring me that nothing was happening. I wanted to believe her. I really did. After all, she'd even come snowboarding with me and my friends during break, and everything had seemed normal between us. She wasn't acting shady when we were together, and I didn't have any concrete reason to doubt her. At least, not yet. But then, as the days went on, I noticed her behavior was getting stranger. Her texts were fewer and farther between, and when she did text, it was like she wasn't really present in the conversation. She'd throw out these half-hearted replies, like she was just going through the motions. It wasn't the Sarah I'd fallen for, the girl who had been so open and real with me just a few weeks earlier. It felt like she was slipping away, and I didn't know why. That's when my suspicions started to grow. It was Mike. I was sure of it. There was something going on there, something she wasn't telling me, but I didn't have proof. All I had were these gut feelings that kept gnawing at me, telling me that something wasn't right. I tried to push it aside, tried to focus on the good times we'd had together, but the doubt kept creeping back in. Every time she mentioned hanging out with Mike, every time she sent me a snap from home, I couldn't help but wonder, was there more to their friendship than she was letting on? I wanted to confront her, ask her outright if there was something going on between them, but part of me was scared of what she might say. What if I was just being paranoid? What if I was overthinking everything? I didn't want to come across as insecure or jealous, but at the same time, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. Digging deeper. Lately, Sarah had been acting a bit off, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. At first, I thought it was just the stress of being home for the holidays and being apart from each other. But as the days turned into weeks, her behavior only became more perplexing. She seemed distant, her laughter less frequent, and her responses felt more like obligations than genuine interest. I tried to push my worries aside, but curiosity got the best of me. I found myself wondering about her friendship with Mike more than I should have. One evening, after another awkward conversation where she was uncharacteristically quiet, I decided to take a peek at her saved snaps, something I knew I shouldn't be doing. My heart raced as I scrolled through the pictures on her phone. What I found sent a chill down my spine. There were images of Sarah and Mike from the very beginning, back when we first started seeing each other. They looked so comfortable together, cuddling, laughing, posing for selfies with that unmistakable closeness. Each photo was a dagger, cutting deeper into my trust. As I sifted through the snaps, I saw them together every time she went home. There they were, on snowboarding trips, leaning against each other with those ridiculous grins on their faces. I noticed how they were always touching, an arm draped casually over her shoulder, a hand resting on her waist. The captions didn't help either. I read messages where they were saying, "I love you," to one another, and Mike was clearly hitting on her. My heart sank as the reality of what I was seeing washed over me. I thought about how I'd been keeping my distance from my own emotions, trying to stay cool about their friendship, but this was different. This was crossing a line. It felt like a betrayal, one I couldn't ignore. I knew I shouldn't have snooped, but I couldn't stop myself. I confronted her about what I'd found, feeling a mix of anger and heartbreak swirling inside me. When I brought it up, I could see the shock on her face. The guilt was palpable, hanging thick in the air between us. "Sarah, I saw the snaps," I said, my voice steady despite the chaos inside. "What's going on between you and Mike?" She hesitated. her eyes darting around the room as if searching for a way to explain the unexplainable. "We kissed," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "But it was a long time ago, before I even knew you. I told him we're just friends. I didn't think it meant anything." My stomach dropped as she continued to talk, her words a blur of regret and excuses. "I took him on a family trip while we were dating, and I didn't tell you," she confessed, looking down, shame washing over her features. "But I thought we weren't serious then. I thought we were just, I don't know, casually dating?" The way she spoke made it sound as if she was trying to convince not just me, but also herself. I wanted to believe her. I really did. We talked it out for what felt like hours, pouring over our feelings and the boundaries we had crossed. I could see that she was genuinely upset, and part of me felt like maybe we could move past this. Maybe this was just a bump in the road, something we could overcome together. In the end, Sarah promised to block Mike on everything. Social media, texts, all of it. She claimed that their friendship wasn't worth losing what we had. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still missing something. For almost 3 months, she'd hung out with this guy, and I trusted her. Now I felt like a fool, like I had let my guard down for someone who didn't deserve it. Despite the resolution we reached, an unsettling doubt lingered. I wanted to believe Sarah when she said everything was behind us, but trust is a fragile thing, and I felt like it had been shattered. I wondered if we could ever get back to the way things were before. Could I ever see her the same way? Each day felt like a new test, a battle between my heart and my mind. I had to figure out if I could truly forgive her, or if the image of those stolen moments with Mike would haunt me forever. The searching heart. It was one of those restless nights when sleep felt like a distant memory. After everything that had transpired between Sarah and me, I found myself battling waves of anxiety and doubt. Thoughts swirled in my mind, and I just couldn't shake off that nagging feeling that there were still things she hadn't told me. So, I took a leap that I knew I shouldn't have, yet I did it anyway. I went through her phone again. It was about a month since the last time I'd checked, and I was already aware of the risks involved. But curiosity clawed at me like a persistent itch I couldn't ignore. As I scrolled through her texts, my heart raced. What would I find this time? Would it be more broken promises and half-truths? I typed in Mike's name, holding my breath. Everything was deleted. My heart sank a little lower. Next, I searched for my own name, hoping to find some reassurance that I was still in her thoughts. As I scanned the texts, I came across a conversation with her best friend, one that twisted my stomach into knots. Apparently, Sarah's best friend didn't even know we were dating until 2 months in. When I read that her friend dismissed our relationship as no big deal and suggested that Sarah was just bored, I felt like the ground beneath me had given way. My fingers trembled as I typed in kissed. I braced myself for what I might uncover. The results were almost instantaneous. I found it, a message where Sarah indeed admitted to kissing a friend who had been visiting her for the weekend. A cold wave of dread washed over me, leaving me breathless. The realization struck me like a punch in the gut. My instincts had been right all along. Digging deeper, I flipped through her camera roll. Images flashed before my eyes, moments that should have felt intimate and cherished. There were pictures of us together, laughing, holding each other, and making promises. But then, I noticed something troubling. There were no pictures from that weekend when she kissed her friend. I scrolled back and saw the dates. She had been hanging out with me just days before and after that fateful encounter. Yet, I had been out of town that day. Panic surged within me. I knew that Guy had visited, and my heart felt heavy with the weight of betrayal. This had all unfolded within the first month of our talking, and now here we were, nearly a year later, stuck in this emotional quicksand. Was I just a rebound? Did she still feel something for Mike? Or even this new friend? I closed her phone, feeling sick. All these questions tangled in my mind. Should I confront her again? What would I even say? I hadn't said anything since our last confrontation, when she promised to be committed to me. But every day that passed felt like I was caught in a tug-of-war between trust and doubt. The next morning, I was a bundle of nerves, trying to carry on with my day-to-day life. Every laugh, every glance from Sarah felt like a reminder of what I had discovered. I went through the motions at work, barely listening to conversations, lost in my own thoughts. Was I being paranoid? Was I overreacting? Yet, that familiar pit in my stomach wouldn't let up. I was so confused. Later that day, Sarah texted me asking if we could meet up. My heart raced at the thought of facing her again, unsure of how to approach our conversation. What if she had sensed my unease? What if she had found out I'd been snooping? As I drove to our meeting spot, the anxiety built within me, each passing moment stretching into eternity. When I arrived, Sarah was already there, sitting on a park bench, her expression a mixture of worry and anticipation. As I approached her, I noticed the way her fingers twisted nervously around the hem of her sweater. I sat down beside her, the air thick with unspoken words. "I've been thinking," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "about everything. About us." I nodded, the lump in my throat making it hard to respond. "Me too," I managed to say. I don't know where we stand anymore." She took a deep breath, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I want to be honest with you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've made mistakes and I've hurt you. I can't take that back, but I want to move forward. I want to fix this." Her sincerity tugged at my heart, but the memories of what I had found made it difficult to believe her. "Sarah, there's so much I don't understand," I admitted. "I found out about that kiss, and it feels like I don't really know you anymore." The tears that had been hovering in her eyes finally spilled over. "I know," she said, her voice breaking. "I was confused, and I thought I could be friends with him. But I see now how that hurt you, and I never wanted to betray you." I wanted to comfort her, but I was still caught in my own turmoil. "But it doesn't change what happened, does it?" I replied, my voice heavy with emotion. "How can I trust you again?" "I know it will take time," she said, wiping her tears, "but I'm willing to fight for us. I'll do whatever it takes. Just please give me a chance." My heart ached at her words. I could see she was genuine, and a part of me wanted to forgive her, to believe that we could find our way back. Yet, another part of me screamed for self-preservation. Could I truly forget the hurt? Then, just as the tension hung thick in the air, a little girl playing nearby ran toward us, giggling and chasing a butterfly. She stumbled, falling to the ground, and her mother rushed over to help her up. Watching the mother comfort her child, I felt a wave of clarity wash over me. In that moment, I realized that relationships, like life, are imperfect. They come with pain, mistakes, and moments of doubt, but they can also be filled with love and healing. "Sarah," I said softly, my heart racing, "I don't know if I can forget everything, but I want to try. I want to work on us." Her face brightened, relief flooding her expression. "Really? You mean that?" "I do," I replied, a tentative smile forming on my lips. "But it's going to take time, and we have to be honest with each other. No more secrets." As she nodded vigorously, hope flickered between us. But then I remembered something else. "And I need you to be open about everything, even the hard stuff. I can't keep wondering if you're still hung up on Mike or anyone else." With a deep breath, she said, "I promise. From now on, I'll share everything. I want to build a future with you, one that's based on trust and honesty." We both knew it wouldn't be easy, but standing there together, I felt the strength of our connection growing. Maybe we could emerge from this stronger than before. As we walked away from the park hand in hand, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. We had both made mistakes, but now we were committed to learning from them. Love, I realized, is not just about perfect moments. It's about embracing imperfections and choosing each other every single day. But then, as we turned the corner, I received a notification on my phone. It was a text from Mike. My heart sank as I glanced at Sarah, wondering if this would be the final test of our relationship. "Who is it?" she asked, her expression shifting from joy to concern. It's Mike," I said, feeling the air grow heavy again. "I think we need to deal with this now." As I opened the message, my hands shook. The words on the screen felt surreal. "I know about everything. Meet me at the coffee shop in 10 minutes. You'll want to hear what I have to say." I looked at Sarah, my mind racing. This isn't just a casual message. It feels urgent. "Do you want to go?" she asked, her voice laced with apprehension. "I have to," I replied, already rising to my feet. If there's something he knows, I can't ignore it. I need to face this. The drive to the coffee shop felt like an eternity, every second filled with dread. I wondered what Mike could possibly have to say that could change everything. Was he going to confess more? Would it shatter the fragile trust one was trying to rebuild with Sarah? When I arrived, Mike was already waiting, leaning against the wall, looking composed and self-assured. I stepped out of the car, my heart pounding in my chest. Sarah followed closely behind me, her hand gripping my arm tightly. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral, but the tension was palpable. "Thanks for coming," he replied coolly, his eyes flicking to Sarah. "I didn't want to drag this out longer than necessary." "What is this about?" I asked, irritation creeping into my voice. "Let's sit," Mike suggested, gesturing to a nearby bench. Reluctantly, we all settled down. I wanted to talk about Sarah, obviously, but more importantly, about how things are unfolding.